I want to see the world, see where mother comes from. Aventura was taking a walk through the garden surrounding the palace with her brother, both clad in fine garments made of silk. The excitement in his voice made her smile warmly. He was everything to her. How could she deny him what he wished for the most? All she wanted was for him to be happy. I will not stand in your way if your wish is to leave. His dark blue, loose-sitting kimono flew through the air when he suddenly turned to embrace her. Gratitude gleamed in his yellow eyes. The pupils were round with happiness. You are the best big sister in the world. A laugh escaped her before she answered. We both know you would have done it either way. Not losing any time, her brother dashed back into the palace, probably for some last arrangements. Aventura took the opportunity to turn into her true form. As a great white dragon, she lifted herself high into the sky. Unlike the elders or her father, her appearance had been graced with wings and scales, even though the mane and feelers from her father's side had stayed. Beneath her the wide realm lay outstretched. Green forests and high mountains inhabited by humans were subject to her clan's rule. To the people she was a goddess, beloved for her benevolence and knowledge like her father had been before. Everywhere people stopped working to look up and bow to the figure passing through the sky. Everything seemed to be in order. Incense burned in the temples, farmers had a rich harvest, and everyone seemed content. With a light heart, Aventura returned to her own residence. Back in the palace, Aventura was summoned by the elders. The elders consisted of wise and ancient dragons and were tasked with giving advice to the head of the clan, though advice was a weak term. Once the council spoke, one was expected to obey. It was an unwritten law. Aventura remembered how her father seldom heeded their words. She didn't feel the need to anger the council so shortly after ascending the throne. It would have been unwise. In a dimly lit chamber, she faced the ancient faces of her forefathers and mothers. You called for me, she said in a humble tone, showing respect.
Your brother has ambitious plans. We hope you don't give him false hopes.
An old, dark orange dragon spoke, his serpent-like body curled up beneath the head with the clear emerald eyes. My brother is part of this clan. Has he not the right to decide his own fate? The white dragon countered, aware of how quickly she could be deemed rebellious with those words.
Your brother's behavior will bring great dishonor upon us,
a female red dragon said calmly but with a stern tone. A green dragon finished the statement with an accusing voice.
The goal was for you to rule together, but instead he puts his own wants before those of his clan, his people.
The icy blue eyes fixed her as he had ended, expecting her to defend her brother's actions. But Aventura had no interest in a trial and stubbornly continued with her argument. Striding through the enormous room in which the elders sat and lied on pillows, she spoke full of authority, yet soft enough to show her ancestors she was still loyal to the clan. As the firstborn, this duty is mine alone. She locked eyes with the green elder before continuing. My brother has no such concerns. He wants to be free, unbound by rules and codes. The answer seemed to sow disapproval, for their tone grew sharper and their eyes showed a dangerous glint. A violet male showed his teeth and let his feelers float agitated in the air. The next who spoke kept his tone bare any emotion, yet his words were carefully chosen to accuse.
Your father already disobeyed by taking a foreigner as his bride, but we will not see this clan succumb to foreign blood.
The disgust her ancestors felt for her mother had never been a secret, but never had it been so clear before. A black dragon added with his deep voice,
It is your duty to protect your clan. Make your brother obey.
The dark blue eyes met her own. The thin pupils and the raised head made it clear who the true authority had in this realm.
It is his duty to listen to you. His loyalty is to nothing else but his clan.
For a moment Aventura let her anger show in her eyes before quickly suppressing it again. The council was her conscience, her code. They were tasked with the protection of traditions and rights. Without those rules there would be nothing. Aventura spoke calmly despite getting torn apart between the two sides. His will is even to mine. He would never abandon it, not even for the clan. The last sentence seemed to pour oil into the already raging fire. Suppressed growls and hisses came from the surrounding elders.
It is selfish of him, betraying his clan, abandoning his homeland.
The orange elder snapped, but he leaves no choice. A female said somberly.
Deal with him.
The violet dragon ordered.
Or accept disgrace as his parting gift.
The black elder thundered. Bowing down, Aventura left the room. Their word was law. They had given her an order. She had understood that. And there was no sense in disobeying the elders. If she failed to follow the code, everything would fall apart. The cold, disciplined mind was set. Her loyalty to her clan was stronger than her love for her brother. Or was it just because she didn't allow herself to feel? Night had fallen when Aventura was still sitting in her room, her mind deep in meditation. Her soul was divided between her love for her brother and her role as a leader. He would never agree to bow to their clan's traditions, yet she knew she could never ignore her duty. In solemn silence she got up. She bound her hair and took her katana. The way from her room to his felt like eternity. Every step seemed more impossible, and somewhere deep inside she hoped to remain walking like that forever. But her personal desires were irrelevant. The clan came first, always. If the council said his acting would lead to the clan to fall apart, then she had to take their word for it. Sliding open the door to her brother's room, she saw him packing before he stopped to look at her. He was already wearing new clothes for the journey, and a straw hat rested on the short black hair. The unspoken question lying in his eyes, he remained silent. She knew. He understood what was happening. Sister. He was cut short when she charged, cutting the air only inches from him on purpose. Her brother quickly took his own sword and jumped out the window. The next hour felt to her like a dream. Instinct had taken over and locked away conscience. Jumping after him, she attacked again. She almost hoped he would flee, but her brother was no coward. Their strength was even. The fight dragged on as her brother defended himself, but kept from harming her. At one point they unleashed their true form, green and white mixed in a storm of teeth and talons. Blood flowed where their sharp claws had ripped the flesh. Aventura unleashed a storm of fire, turning the night into day for a moment. Her brother dodged and rammed her. Firmly in each other's grip they hit the ground. She felt her bones in her wings and ribcage snapped. Puddles of blood had emerged where their blood had rained down. Her brother had turned into his human form again, the clothes torn and bloody, the slitted pupils full of rage and grief. Aventura did the same, albeit her blue eyes didn't show the turmoil of her soul. They were cold as the steel in her hands, and just as deadly. Both took a last stance, aiming with their swords' pointy end at each other. A roar came from her brother as he charged, a sound which might have ripped her heart apart would she have allowed it. With one swift motion his wrathful outcry ceased. Her blade had pierced his heart. With hatred he fixed her before the gaze broke and the dead body of a big green dragon appeared, just as it happened to all dying gods who weren't human. Panting, the survivor stood in the blood and the mud, the sword pointing to the ground. Aventura hadn't known how truly she loved him before her heart cried out in anguish. Something inside her seemed to shatter as she looked at the shell her brother had inhabited only seconds ago. Rain started to fall. It was the typical pouring fashion common for their homeland. Exhausted, she fell to her knees. Her long black hair, now loose, fell into her face. What would the people say about their watchers murdering each other? What would they learn from it? She had tainted her home. tainted the world by spilling blood for the first time. She wanted to cry, but the tears would come. What right did she have to be sad? She wanted to scream, but the voice was dead. Stuck in her throat, the unuttered cry remained. She didn't feel sad, didn't feel angry. She only felt numbness festering inside her like a sickness. Drenched to the skin and under a night sky, Aventura got up. Her sword in her hand, she left the battlefield to never return. The next morning the throne would be abandoned, her people in their own care, and the elders would be furious about the treason she had committed. She didn't care. Her brother was gone, taken by her own hand. She should have killed herself with him, but she didn't deserve to die. She didn't deserve to live. Perhaps the universe would have pity. Aventura Sazanabe was a god no more.